Good evening. Hello, everyone. Sorry
Happy
we're
Thursday.
running. Yeah, you got it right.
Thank you.
Sorry we're running a little bit late tonight. There have been some technical issues, and there's also been weather issues.
But we're here.
It's freezing and it's cold and it's snowing and all these things. Anyway, but we are here now, and tonight what we're going to talk about is, what are we talking about tonight?
Is it
Common prospecting mistakes. Okay, this is hot off the presses. So we're just going to go through a few things tonight. Like I said, we're starting a little late, so we're going to try to make this brief. I know we always say that, and then we get on.
It's our intention.
Yeah, that's our intention, but we get on a roll, and it just
gold.
It just keeps
out.
on going. Yeah, and they're just gold
Yeah.
nuggets. So, so let's start this. First off, what is a very common mistake? Miss Caitlin, this was yours.
Could it be failing to prepare?
Failing to prepare.
Oh,
What?
You know, if we've said it once, we've said it multiple times. By failing to prepare, you're
preparing to fail. Yes. So what do we mean by preparation? Well, if you're making a prospecting call, you should be ready to answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to be
verbally saying it?
Yeah. Does it mean that you have to be an encyclopedia? You have to have all the answers? No, but just be prepared that they're going to ask you questions. So don't get nervous and caught off guard. It means understanding the things you do know, making sure that you understand what you do know, if that makes any sense. There are things you can know in life and not really understand them just because you know them. I know that the Hoover Dam keeps water back. I know that it supplies power, but I can't tell you every inner working of exactly how that all works. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what you want to do is the things that you feel confident in, be ready to answer questions about those things you don't understand, things you don't feel confident in. That's okay. Just make sure that you let them know, you know, that's a great question. I don't have the answer, but I'll get the answer and I'll get back to you.
Yep.
So preparing yourself both mentally, both practically, you know, having some brochures in front of you, having the websites open, having these things ready when you're talking to someone, whether it be face-to-face, you have your laptop there, or whether it's over the phone, you can have this information there so you can be prepared to answer the question. You can be prepared with a presentation. That's a great thing when you're prospecting, is have a presentation prepared.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't have to be an hour-long presentation. It doesn't have to be a flip chart. It doesn't have to be a PowerPoint. Simply know how to go from one subject to the next in explaining what this opportunity is.
Right.
So a lot of times right now, especially post-pandemic, which really we're not completely out of the woods, but you know, the worst part of it that we've seen is we're kind of not at that point anymore. But because of the pandemic, people are very aware of how the immune system works, or more aware of how it works than they've ever been before. So what I find is that right now, leading with the product and leading with what it can do for the immune system, even for people who are interested in the business, that is something that's been a very good segue recently, because people can see the value of a business is based on the best product in the market for the immune system.
Yeah.
And if people aren't looking for the business, guess what? They still want to protect themselves, right? So, but learning and being prepared to segue from the product into the company, into the opportunity, into the support, and into getting started, those 5 points and how to segue between them, having a presentation that smoothly takes you from point to point, that's preparation.
Yeah.
These are things you can do to prepare yourself. So the first common mistake people make is they get zealous and they just want to get out there and sign someone up. So what do? They start calling people before they know anything.
Right.
Or they start trying to tell people and then they fumble over the words, or they start spinning things that shouldn't be spun. And then they get themselves in trouble because they're taking people down a path they didn't intentionally mean to. A lot of times it's just they're excited and they're like, this product can do this and this and this, when that's a no-no. But if you go into it prepared and ready, and you have not even, it helps if you practice your presentation. It really does, in front of a mirror, speaking into a recorder, whatever. It does help to kind of listen to yourself and kind of understand how to go through these things. But just being prepared, being mentally prepared, being prepared for rejection if they don't want to listen to you. Hey, it's okay. Be prepared for the questions you don't know the answers to. But having a presentation that you feel comfortable with getting from point to point to point, that is one of the key things in preparation when you're talking to prospects, because guess what? When you're talking to prospects, you're going to get into a presentation.
Right.
That's inevitable. At some point, someone's going to say, yeah, I'd like to know more. Wasn't ready for that. You got to be prepared for that. Don't be prepared to just leave messages all day and get no's all day. You have to think positively and think, okay, I'm going to get some people. I may get some no's, but I'm going to get someone that I'm going to get into this presentation with.
Yeah. Yep.
Want to add
And
to that?
yeah, we've talked about it before on how to curate a presentation.
Yes,
And tailor it to the person you're speaking with, because
exactly.
one size does not fit all. And it's important to tailor that presentation for the things that they are interested in. And to do that very easily, especially if you're someone who's like, oh, a script, I don't want to do a script.
Right.
I flow better when I don't have a script, but
Right.
maybe you're leaving some things out. Maybe
Right.
you aren't saying things the way that they actually are supposed to be said, like you were
Right.
saying. So our suggestion is to get those categories, the product, the immune system, the compensation plan,
Yep.
what you would be doing, the company, support, get those categories and fill those categories with just a couple points that are hot points.
Right, bullet points.
Yeah. So then when someone's talking to you and you realize that something that they're saying makes you think that they're very interested in nutrition, go to the product. And that might be your third category down, but you go to the product.
Right.
You don't start with the one that's at the top. You go
Right.
with what flows. So go
Right.
with the flow.
Exactly.
So know your stuff,
Mhm.
know where to send them.
Right.
And if you don't know where to send them and you don't know your stuff, then just be honest with them and say, I would love to get that answer for you.
Right.
I will get back to you, and give them a time frame in 48 hours.
Right. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer this question when someone pops a question to you that you don't know the answer to.
Right.
Now, ironically, or as fate would have it,
Ooh.
what she said right there segues into another thing. Instead of listening to the prospect, so many times we listen for our chance to speak. But when you listen to the prospect, guess what? It will guide your presentation, just as Caitlin just said. So it's important that's a very common mistake, that when people do have information, they have a tendency to wait for the first opportunity for those people to say, yeah, tell me about it. And then it's just like, oh, and they throw up information on the person. I call it an information dump, which, like I mentioned to Caitlin off camera earlier, that kind of has a connotation, you think
Weird
of a bathroom or something
picture,
gross.
yeah.
An information dump. But essentially that's what's happening, is you're just dumping so much information on them that it's overwhelming. So it's important that you listen to your prospect. You don't just listen to them for them to take a breath so that you can get a word in.
Right.
Listen to what they're saying. Listen to what their hot buttons are, what their passions are, what it is that you say that triggers them. Because then you can say, oh, they're really interested in what this product can do. So then you start with product. Now, maybe in your presentation, starting off was the company.
Right.
But that's not what their hot button is. So you start with the product and then segue into the others as you go. As she said, you look for that flow of the presentation. What we need to do, and what I mentioned in the preparation, was have a presentation. That doesn't mean, as she said, it's not one size fits all. I'm saying have the categories, just as Caitlin said, but be fluid and be able to move those categories around according to what the person needs. But in order to do that, you have to listen to your prospect. You can't just jump in there and say, does this sound like something you've interested in? Yes. Well, great. You can't do that. You have to listen to them. Get to know them a little bit. Ask questions, probing questions that aren't invasive questions. Like, so, have you ever been in home-based business before? How'd that go for you? Does it interest you? Have you ever done this type of business? Is that something you'd be open to? Those are just probing questions that are very passive. You're not trying to nail them down, anything. You're not getting a commitment out of them. You're simply trying to find out how to guide your presentation to meet their needs.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
All right. And another thing
Oh,
is,
I had a thought. It
go.
just came to me again.
Whoa.
So also when you curate your presentation, you can also curate the tools that you send them to. So,
Tools.
Yeah.
That constantly comes up on the prospect.
Yeah.
Tools, tackle box, bait,
Tools.
switch.
Yeah. All of it.
Yeah. It all fits.
Yeah. So when you're preparing your presentation, you also want to make sure that you have not only those hot points under every
Right.
category, but also 1 or 2, maybe 3 tools that you can send the person if they're very interested in one specific area
Right.
of your presentation.
Exactly.
Send them a tool on that. We do have tools that are more of an overview of
Right.
all points. We do have tools that are more targeted to specific parts of the
Right.
opportunity. So that's also something that we suggest, not only
Yeah.
having those hot points, but also having some hot tools to go
Right.
under those categories.
So for
You'll
every
be
hot
set.
point, there is a tool to support that.
Yes.
So let's say you're talking to someone, an example of that, let's say you're talking to someone about the immune system.
Mhm.
You're talking to them about the product. This has happened many times on the call. You start getting into the business and you can tell you're losing them.
Right.
So what do? You bring it back to the product, or at that point you say, why don't I send you some information
Right. Yeah.
on the product?
Mhm.
And that's where those tools come into play, because now you know what their hot button is, because you tried to direct towards the other part of the presentation and
You're like,
they weren't interested.
Yeah.
They weren't looking to build a business, but your product has them hooked. So at that point, you can just kind of slowly bow out,
mhm.
but offer to send them the tools on that specific hot point. So
We have
that's a
of
great
product
suggestion.
tools or
Yeah.
videos. We have the immune superpower system
Right.
that you could send them to. That is all about the immune system and transfer factors. That would be a really good one.
It keeps it targeted to what they want.
Total Health for Life is more of a product. It has more on the studies that have been done on the products, which is a good one too. So if someone's really interested in the products, Total Health for Life, if they're more interested in transfer factors,
Right.
because they're one and the same, but also it's different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The same but different.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. So so keep that in mind. We have tools to support
your hot
those
points.
bullet points. Right on. Okay. This one here is a little tricky to explain, but I felt that it was necessary to put this in there because this is something that I've heard other people struggle with, and early on in my experience, I struggled with this too. Just because someone is inquiring about a home-based business, do not assume that they understand the industry.
Right.
And do not assume that they understand the way it works. Okay. That's something I struggle with, and I've seen people struggle with a lot, is that they will talk to someone, the person says, yeah, I really want to build a home business. I've been looking into this. I want to do something from home.
Right.
There is such a broad spectrum of home-based businesses. You can't assume because they have looked at home-based businesses, they have any clue about your particular industry.
Right.
Or your particular opportunity. I've talked to people who said, yeah, I want to build a home-based business. I've been looking into it. What do you got? I started explaining to them our opportunity and our marketing, and they are just completely lost. They're like, well, I thought that I could get sent products and put them together and send them back and you pay me.
Oh.
Well, there is actually a business.
It is home-based.
Yeah, and it's home-based. And there are people that do that for a living. They get hooked up with these manufacturers. The manufacturers send them products. They assemble the products and then ship them back to the people. And then they get a commission on however many of these they can put out. Then I've had people say, well, yeah, I'm looking for a business from home, but I was looking for something that's more of like, they've got makeup, they've got lingerie, they've got yoga pants and workout gear. There's all just about anything you get in retail, you can find a home-based business that you sell it from home and you stock it, and then you call parties or you get on Facebook. So just because a person says they're interested in a home-based business, don't assume that they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I've seen people do that, and they take off on a rant on these people, and they don't ever establish, again, the probing questions. What's been your experience? What are some of the companies been? Those are simple, non-invasive questions that help you understand this stuff.
Right.
But if you just assume when someone says, yes, I have been looking for a home-based business, you can take things down a completely different route and lose them before you ever even had a chance to get them hooked.
Right.
And many of these people, if you explain it to them, many of them, it will pique their interest and they will want to know, hey, that I haven't looked into that kind of business, but tell me more about this. I'm kind of interested. The fact that you don't have to carry any type of stock keeps your overhead low. The fact that you don't have to do these things, that's what differentiates us from some of these other ones that people are out there looking at. So don't just assume that because they have responded to something about home-based business that they understand the industry, because what's going to happen if you assume that, you're going to take things in a direction that's just going to completely turn them off, and you may destroy a great prospect simply because you weren't listening to them.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, another thing, a common mistake is listening for cues to close or to move on. Okay. A lot of times people will cue you that they're interested to get signed up, but because you're nervous about pressuring them, it's like, so when would you like me to call you back? Well, I really think this is a good fit for me. What does it take to get started? It just takes getting this, but what would be a good time to get back to you so you can decide? They're basically telling you they're decided. They've decided. But I find that people, when they're new to prospecting, a very common mistake is that they're nervous about the close. They are fine with the presentation. They're fine with the interaction. But when it comes to close, they feel like that if they ask someone to actually sign up, that they're putting pressure on them.
Right.
Okay. Which is weird because that's the whole point of the call,
right,
or the whole point of the interaction you're having. But I find that people do that. They have a tendency to do the presentation, get the person's interest, feel great about that. But then when it comes time to actually close them and seal the deal, they feel, I don't know, feel awkward.
Have firsthand experience.
See, it's real, people.
Yeah, when I was a success consultant and I was starting to do a little bit of prospecting calls, that was me. I was like, every time I'd be on the phone, I felt like I was like asking them to spend money on me.
Right.
Okay, I'm one of those people that goes to a restaurant, and if someone else is paying, I'm like, I'll just have the side salad and water. Thank you. Like, I don't like people to spend money on me.
Right.
So when I'm calling people and I'm thinking about it in that way, they're spending money so I can make money. Like, first off, prepare. It's back to the first point. Prepare your mindset.
Yep.
You have to remember that you're contacting these people because they asked you to contact them.
Right.
Okay?
These are not unsolicited calls.
Right. This is either indirect or directly. Maybe they responded to one of our rejection-free marketing systems like the postcards or your Facebook ad. That's a direct contact. Maybe an indirect contact is buying some interviewed leads where they've been asked home-based business, like all those different questions. Obviously, you want to re-ask them. But remember that they are asking for this information. All you are doing is giving them the information that they asked for.
You're facilitating their request.
You're presenting them with a gift. Whether they take the gift or not is not your problem. And if they want to take the gift, be happy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one that you need to be aware of, is look for the cues. Now, sometimes the cue is to just let this one go.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you talk to them and they're like, well, that sounds great. I just don't know if that's right for me though. Well, yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. If you have to convince someone, you have to drill someone to sign up. They show a little bit of interest, but they're not ready. If you have to convince them to sign up today, you're probably going to have to convince them next month to reorder.
Right.
And you'll probably have to convince them the month after that to reorder. Okay. The fact is that people have a tendency to sometimes feel the pressure and just give into it, sometimes just to get you off the phone.
Right.
I know people that have bought things they didn't need simply because the salesperson would not let them hang up without signing up.
I would be one of those people. Look at me.
So call her. But look for the cues and understand when sometimes it's time to just, kind of give them a pass.
Yeah.
Okay, because sometimes you have to understand that some people, if you have to convince them today, you're going to have to continue to convince them. And it's really going to be a drain on you and on your time and on things when there are people out there who really want to do this. Okay, and this is where we talked about before. Caitlin's brought it before, both in this call and also in some of the Monday night or Tuesday night training, Monday night, one of the two, that, you know, you have to look at the amount of time that you have to spend in building your business, and don't waste your time on prospects or people that aren't really into it, because you're spreading yourself thin for those people that do need it. So be respectful of those people, but also learn how to take a hint, both if they're saying, sign me up, please.
Right.
And if they're saying, this isn't for me, thanks for the call.
Right.
Understand those. So that's a common mistake, because you can waste a lot of time on stuff like that, which leads me into the next one. And the final point for tonight.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're already there. Wow. Believing that every call you make has everything writing on it. Does that make sense? Okay. You've been there?
Yeah.
Okay. See, we didn't realize this was a examination of Caitlin's psyche
For
tonight,
real?
but it is.
I'm like,
okay. See, so sometimes people believe that every call they make is do or die. And if they don't get this sale, they don't get this close, they've done a horrible job.
Right.
Or they feel like it's somehow a statement of their ability to be a good salesman or not. Every single call.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like every single call you're hanging on to. It's like, I've got to get this person to sign up. That's a mistake. That's a very common mistake. But it's also, it's not a bad thing necessarily. You want to look at every person and give them the full attention as though they're going to be your next big person. But you have to understand that if the person says no, you've got 1,000 other people, 10,000, 100,000 other people that still could say yes.
Right.
So thinking that every time you pick up that phone, that this is do or die, and if I don't get this person, then I'm a failure, that's the wrong attitude to have.
Right.
Okay. It's okay to do your best every single time. You want to do your best every single time, but understand that even at your best, on your best day, with your best presentation, it's not about you in that moment.
Right.
It's about the person on the other end of the call. And so regardless of how good you are, that person can still tell you no. That was one of the greatest lessons I learned in this, is that I could give everything 100%, be spot on, be on point with everything that person wanted. But at the end of that call, they could easily just say no and be done with it.
Right.
And that doesn't mean anything that I did was wrong. This is why we time and time again tell people it is not about it's not about goals or the end result. Right. It's about the effort you put in.
Yes.
So if you've done your best job, the best you could at that time, in that moment, in that day, you've done the best you could, and they still told you no, feel good about that, move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Don't let everything ride on it so that you're like, I've done everything right, and they just told me no. I'm worthless at this.
Right.
This
terrible.
This is not for me. I don't know what I was thinking. I never should have been. No. You can't let everything ride on that. You have to look at your effort. You have to do the best you can, but understand that for every person that tells you no, there's someone out there looking for exactly what you're offering.
Right.
It may take you 50, 100, 1,000 people sometimes to find them, but when you find that one, it's on.
Yep.
You know, it is on. So that's a big mistake that I feel like a lot of people make, is that they feel like every call they make, their entire future, their entire integrity of who they are rides on that call being a success or not. And by success, I mean they think that person should sign up. So keep in mind that that is not the case, that when you're on that phone or person to person in the coffee shop, wherever, your job is just to do the best with what you got. That's it. And if you do the best with what you got, then you've been successful.
Yeah.
You're successful. That doesn't mean that they're going to sign up. It doesn't mean they're not going to sign up.
Right.
They might sign up. You might get on a streak and start signing people up left and right. Good for you. You might be on a losing streak and just time after time giving perfect presentation, people saying no. hey,
You're
it's
still getting
okay.
experience.
You're getting experience. You're growing in this. You're getting better. Just like going to the gym. Sometimes that weight doesn't want to go up, but the fact that you're still pushing, you're still trying, you're going to get it the next time or the next time. That's the way you got to look at it. So that's the last point I had was, but that's a very important one because I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people, they let so much ride on every single call that it can become disheartening when you don't get the close you want.
Right.
It can really knock some people down, you know, and really make it hard for them. But just remember that time has proven that if you stick to it, you do all the little things, you keep progressing, you keep learning, that break will come.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes sooner than others. Sometimes it feels like it's never going to happen. I've seen people that they try and they try and they try and they're just spinning their wheels, and they're doing everything they can. God bless them, you know. And then about the time they give up, someone will respond to one of their mailings or whatever that is the one they've been looking for, but they've let go and said, I'm done.
Right.
Sometimes you get right to that threshold, you're right there, but you've spent all this time pushing and pushing and pushing, and it hasn't happened. And you finally say, you know what, I don't have it in me anymore.
Yeah.
You let go, and right as you let go, that big fish is right there.
Right.
We've seen it happen so many times, and it just crushes you because you're like, oh my God, they were so close. You know, this is the person they needed, and they finally got them.
Yeah.
And then I know people that honestly, that never happens. They get a few customers here and there. They get enough to cover their product here and there. They make a little headway, lose a little headway. You know, they struggle through, but because they love the company, they love the products, and they're passionate about it, they stick with it. And you know, and for those people, God bless them too. We're glad that they're there. We're going to be here to help them out. But just don't let everything ride on the one call, on every single call, because it can be crushing. It really can be. So understand that again, it's about the effort you put in. It's about making sure you do the best that you can. It's not about them signing or not signing. You can't let everything ride on that, because you know you're going to get a lot more no's than you're going to get yeses.
Right.
I mean, to be franky. To be completely honest. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So those are some things we wanted to go over tonight. Just common things to keep in mind when you're prospecting, common mistakes that people make, and ways to avoid those mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it, as we said in the very first, it's about preparing your mind, just thinking things through correctly. It's amazing what just having the right perspective on these things, what a difference it can make in the way that you perform. It's just taking everything step by step.
Yeah. And I do think it's important to remember that preparation can take your best to exceptional.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, if you take the time to really prepare, and you have that really good outline, you have those hot points, and you have tools to support those hot points, that is your outline.
Right.
At that point, there's no losing.
Right.
You are prepared. The only thing you have to gain is experience, which means making those calls, figuring out a flow that works for you.
Right.
You know, I would say you should make probably about, and have the conversation with somebody probably about 20 times, do you think, before you can get into a real groove with a script? Except it, like with somebody who is inexperienced.
Right. Someone, you know, that's a talker like myself or like Caitlin, we'd probably get into flow pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Once we had a few calls, we would kind of shake the dust off, like, okay, that wasn't so bad. I'm getting this.
Right.
Someone who is not as much of an outgoing people person, it might take up to 20 actual conversations, not 20 calls, 20 actual conversations to kind of start honing what's going on.
Right.
Probably about halfway through that, you start kind of seeing, okay, now I kind of know what works, but I don't feel comfortable just yet. So you keep going.
Keep chugging.
Yeah, keep on chugging. And that's it. Just as we always say, do something.
Yeah.
Do something. As long as you keep moving, doing something, it'll get better.
Give 100% of whatever you can give.
Right. And remember, today's best might not be as good as tomorrow's.
Right.
Today's best may have blown away yesterday's best. That's why I said earlier, it's about doing your best on that day, in that moment with that person.
Right.
It's not always going to be the same, but so long as you're giving your best at that time, you know, maybe you had a rough day, maybe you're tired, maybe, but you're still doing the best with what you can.
Mhm.
That's your best for that day.
Yep.
You know what? And you couldn't have done any better. You did exactly what you could. So just keep that in mind that, you know, giving 100% doesn't mean your 100% looks the same every day. It just means that you're giving 100% of what you have to offer for that day.
Mhm.
Some days it's less,
Yeah.
you know, some days it's a struggle. Other days it just feels like, oh man, this is easy. Boom, boom, boom.
As a side note, I did remember something I wanted to share earlier on knowing when to let someone go.
Right.
Basically, like letting them tell you, I'm not interested.
Right.
Like a good way to leave that is to basically say, okay, yeah, that's great. Just reach out to me if you ever change your mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that leaves it a very good conversation, but it also leaves it open for if the time comes when they feel like they're ready to conquer something like that, you have a prospect
Right.
that's already going to be
Right.
able to have your contact information and everything.
Right. One of the things I love to say on calls is, and it wasn't like this. I used to always say it in a way that seemed a little more cold and harsh. I don't remember how I used to say it, but I just know it wasn't as well. But what I love to say is, you know, that's fine. I'm glad, you know, I'm glad you were frank with me. Glad that you were, you know, my main purpose was to see if we're a good fit for you.
Right.
That's what I like to say is if we're a good fit for you, because what that does is it takes the pressure off them from feeling like that you're saying, well, you don't know what you're missing type of thing. Because sometimes that's kind of the way it was in the past when I would say it was almost kind of like I was suggesting, well, yeah, you're really passing something gold up. But I mean, if you want to, go
it's your
ahead.
decision, I
Yeah,
guess.
whatever. But now what I say is well, you know, I appreciate your time, you know, and all I was trying to do is get you the information, see if we're a good fit. And if we're not a good fit, then I understand. But if down the road, you know, you think about it, you look at what we're doing, maybe it comes back to your mind, please just get a hold of us. We'll be more than happy to help you then. That's the way it closes, just as you said. You leave it on a good note, on a high note, even though it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. You want them to feel as though you'll be okay, they'll be okay, but there's still an opening for something in the future if they decide. So that's a great point. So
thank you.
Yes. So we did it again.
That was a mic drop session.
Yes, we did it again. Somehow we went from struggle to
success.
32 minutes in. Wow. Okay. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. These calls are going to start looking a little bit different soon.
We're thinking about it.
We're thinking about it.
We're tossing the idea.
We're tossing the idea of almost a round table type of a situation and combining maybe some calls or combining some, you know, whatever. So
keep you guys in the loop.
Yeah, we'll keep you in the loop. That may be happening, maybe not. Let us know what you think. Is 3 calls enough? Is 3 calls too much? Do you want more calls? Do you want less calls? Do you want condensed? Let us know. Feedback, please. But we do thank you guys for tuning in on Thursday nights. We appreciate it. We sure enjoy it. And we look forward to it every Thursday, even though there's only so much we can go through before we start having to go through things again.
Leave questions in the comments
if
you ever have
please.
any questions or anything or topic ideas.
Right.
You know, this guy's got experience. I've got the tools. Yep. We'll give you a solution.
We'll make it work. So yeah, definitely. If there's something that you faced in the field that you're like, I haven't heard you guys address this, but this is what happened to me, or how do I deal with this? Then please let us know, because we'll tackle it. But until then, we will just keep on chugging along. Some of these, what we'll do is we may end up rehashing some stuff, but in a different perspective. So it may feel like a new call, but it may be some of the same stuff.
You only retain 40% of what you hear.
Yeah, so it's all going to feel new to you anyway.
Yeah.
So until next time, it is Frankie Shayne and Katie Lane. Good night, everyone. We are out. Bye.